The system sent me into a novel to save the tragic supporting actress, but I failed again and again. After countless cycles of rebirth, trying every method imaginable, I could never change the ending. She always fell for the hero, and she always died, a casualty of the plot. Finally, the system must have realized it was a hopeless cause. It lowered the mission parameters. Just focus on the hero. Any method, no restrictions. When I heard that, I was ecstatic. After being stuck in this endless loop, I was so unbelievably sick of these stupid women. The aloof, beautiful master, the gentle second-in-command, the fiery but kind-hearted junior, the bubbly youngest apprentice. They were all just starstruck idiots orbiting the hero like moons. This time, I decided I was done. I would leave the academy, get out from under their shadow, and go poach the hero's fated windfalls for myself. It was the perfect 2-for-1 deal. I'd get away from them and complete my mission. I didn't waste a second. I headed straight for the Archon's Grand Hall. Just my luck. I ran into the 3 junior apprentices on the path, laughing and fooling around. The moment they saw me, their senior apprentice, approaching, the noise died. The reluctance on their faces was obvious, but they still had to stop and offer a respectful nod. Senior apprentice. They knew what was coming. I did what I always did, lectured them about slacking off, about not taking their training seriously, and droned on with some grand principles that bored them to tears. Hey, I said, and kept walking without breaking my stride. In several past lives, I poured every resource I scraped together into those 3. I played the part of the ultimate simp, hoping that if I just boosted their power enough, they could escape their tragic fates. And you know what they did? They turned around and secretly funneled most of it to the hero, Caleb Vance. And in the end, it didn't change a thing. Their fates remained sealed. This time around, your lies are not my problem. As long as I can intercept the hero's destiny, my mission is complete. The 3 of them were clearly stunned that I hadn't laid into them. They just stood there exchanging bewildered looks. He didn't even yell at us. That was weird. Look, he's heading for the Archon's Hall. You think he's going to rat us out? Totally possible. Let's go. We can sneak up and listen in. After a quick huddle, they started tailing me up the mountain. Standing before the massive doors of the hall, I clasped my hands and announced, Asher Hayes, requesting an audience with the Archon. Enter. A cool voice resonated from within. I stepped inside. On the high seat at the far end of the hall sat a woman of stunning icy beauty. This was my master, Archon Seraphina Frost. Is this about your juniors again? She asked, a slight frown creasing her brow. Her senior apprentice was exceptional in every way, except for his obsessive, almost fanatical devotion to training. It was one thing for him to be a fanatic himself, but he insisted on pushing everyone else to the same standard. Not understanding that pushing too hard, too fast, often led to burnout or disaster. No, I said, my gaze lowered. I've had something of a breakthrough in my studies recently. I'd like to request leave for an extended training expedition. I need your permission. Seraphina paused, a flicker of surprise in her eyes before nodding. Very well. At least this way those 3 girls wouldn't be coming to her every other day to complain about their overbearing senior. Thank you. Archon, I took the special medallion she offered, a pass that would grant me unrestricted leave, and turned to go. As I left the hall, I couldn't miss the 3 figures hiding clumsily in the shadows of a pillar. I couldn't be bothered to say anything and walked right past them. Once they saw I was gone, they tiptoed into the hall. Archon, did he say something bad about us? We swear we've been training really hard. Archon Master. They all started talking at once, the room buzzing with their excuses. Enough. Seraphina raised a hand to silence them. Your senior apprentice is going on an expedition. He won't be back for some time. What? Seriously? They didn't say it out loud, but the joy lighting up their faces was impossible to hide. Seraphina shook her head with a sigh, wondering if she'd been too soft on these apprentices. While she thought, let it be, she remembered her own master pushing her relentlessly, and she had no desire to become the person she used to resent. After a clean break from the academy, one immediately set my plan in motion. Racing to the nearest nexus point, my only goal was to find the powerful artifacts and relics that were destined to fall into Caleb Vance's hands. I had, however, severely overestimated my own luck. I investigated several leyline hotspots and hidden groves, only to come up empty. I didn't find so much as a single withered herb. Was the hero's destiny so ironclad that no one else could even touch the edges of it? Was this life doomed to be a repeat of all the others? Was my desperate attempt to stop his rise just a futile gesture against an unstoppable force? No, I can't give up. Even if it's all for nothing, it's better than dealing with those 4 hopeless women back at the academy. It had been over 3 months since I left. By now, Caleb Vance had probably enrolled at Ethelgard Academy and become Seraphina's prized personal apprentice. That's it. I smacked myself on the forehead. I'd almost forgotten. A high-stakes pocket dimension, an ancient vault, was scheduled to open soon. Granted, with my current power level, Master Tier, I was barred from entry. The vault had strict access controls, a limited number of slots, open only to novice tier practitioners, But what if I stole Caleb's entry token? If I could keep him out, I could cut him off from a major A little petty theft was a small price to pay for that kind of disruption. No time to waste. I immediately teleported to the bustling hub of Eastgate City. I hadn't expected to run into someone the moment I arrived. There are three main heroines in this story. The way one of them meets Caleb is a special kind of cliché. Inside the vault, she's poisoned with a potent ember bloom toxin. While desperately trying to escape, she's saved by Caleb. As the toxin peaks, they end up involved. At first, she despises him for it. She even considers killing him to erase the memory. But after he saves her a few more times, her hatred slowly blossoms into love. Yeah, it was that kind of garbage trope. And standing not 20 feet away from me, dressed in a flowing sea green gown, was that very same heroine, Vane, the prodigy of the verdant sanctuary. An idea sparked. I abandoned my original plan. I ducked into an apothecary on the corner and spent a small fortune on a top-shelf universal and I placed the vial carefully inside a small embroidered silk pouch. When I stepped back out, she had vanished into the crowd. No matter, I'd have my chance. I changed into a simple, unassuming white robe and began to wander the streets, feigning nonchalance while I scanned for my target. Luckily, it didn't take long. I saw her coming out of a shop that sold magical artifacts, a new jade pendant hanging from her belt, glowing softly in the afternoon sun. It was Vane's first visit to Eastgate City, and the sheer energy of the place was intoxicating. She and the other apprentices from her sanctuary were enjoying themselves, window shopping and exploring. Anytime something caught her eye, she'd buy it on the spot and tuck it into her spatial storage bag. They had just left an artifact shop when a man in a plain white robe stepped into their path. "A moment of your time, miss," the man said. His voice was clear and resonant, like striking crystal. She saw his gaze was fixed on her. She instinctively tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear and asked gently, "You wish to speak with us, sir?" The man in white offered a respectful bow, his posture impeccable. "My name is Brother Astra. I am the third disciple of the Oracle of Ages." "A disciple of the Oracle?" One of the younger apprentices gasped. The Oracle of Ages was legendary, famous for his ability to see the threads of fate. To meet one of his disciples here, of all places, felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She was just as surprised. She quickly returned the bow, not doubting his claim for a second. Who in their right mind would dare to falsely claim a connection to the Oracle? "What can I do for you, Brother Astra?" she asked, her eyes wide with sincere curiosity as she looked up. The man smiled faintly. "I was observing the flow of fate around you, miss, and I foresee a great calamity in your near future." "What?" A knot of anxiety tightened in her chest. Her mind immediately jumped to the vault expedition in 2 days, but entry was restricted to novice. She was confident in her abilities. She couldn't imagine losing to anyone in there. Still, to be warned of a calamity by a disciple of the Oracle, anyone would be unnerved. However, the man's tone shifted. "While this trial is perilous, it is also intertwined with the spark of a new romance. Once the danger has passed, a destined hero will appear as if from the heavens to aid you." "Oh, I see." She let out a quiet sigh of relief. She subconsciously toyed with a jade token at her waist, her entry pass to the vault. If a bit of danger led her to her soulmate, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. An image bloomed in her mind, a handsome young man in white, sword in hand, with a smile as bright as the morning sun, taking her hand amidst a sea of chaos. "But there is a catch," the man in white said with a deep sigh. "The danger can be averted, but the loss of your innocence cannot. Furthermore, your thread of fate looks remarkably similar to that of another woman I once met." "It does." Shattered. She would be saved, but she'd lose her honor in the process. That was unacceptable. The man continued, his voice grave. "She followed her destiny, married her fated one, and now shares him with 2 other women. Their life is, for the most part, content." Flinched, the color draining from her face. While it wasn't unheard of for powerful men in the arcane world to have multiple partners, she was the prodigy of the verdant sanctuary. She'd been treasured and protected her whole life. The thought of her future husband holding another woman was intolerable. Her throat felt tight. She clutched the sleeve of her gown and bowed again. "Brother Astra, is there any way to change this? I beg you, please teach me." "The solution lies with the one who holds the key. The method isn't difficult," he said, pulling a small silk pouch from his sleeve and holding it out to her. "But be warned, once this thread of fate is severed, your future becomes veiled and mist. Impossible even for me to fully perceive. You must remember, this pouch can only be opened in a moment of life or death peril, when you are utterly alone and without aid. Whether you can defy your destiny rests entirely on the choice you make in that moment." Ara took the pouch with grave reverence. Instead of putting it in her storage bag, she tucked it securely inside her robes, close to her heart. When she looked up to ask another question, the man in white had already turned and melted back into the bustling crowd, his final words hanging in the air. "The paths of fate are ever-changing. Be well. Are you still going in a vault?" One of her friends asked worriedly. She didn't answer. She had to go. If no danger arose, great. But if it did, she had the pouch. She wasn't afraid. Once I was sure no one was following me, I ducked into an alley, gasping for air, my heart hammering against my ribs. After I calmed down, I slipped out the other end. All I had to do now was wait. I just had to hope that our vein wasn't as foolish as the 4 women from my own academy and wouldn't lose the antitoxin. Preventing Caleb from getting his lucky break was the only victory that mattered. That as I stepped out of the alley, I saw them. My 3 junior apprentices gathered around a young man, their eyes filled with adoration. The man was Caleb Vance. I stayed hidden and found an inn to lay low. 2 days later, I followed the group to the entrance of the vault, watching from a safe distance. Worried about your juniors, are we? I turned. It was one of the senior elders from Ethelgard, tasked with overseeing the expedition. That's not why I'm here, I said, shaking my head, my eyes still fixed on the shimmering portal of the vault. The elder smiled knowingly. It seems your training expedition has been quite fruitful. I may not have scored any of the hero's major artifacts, but I'd picked up plenty of smaller ones along the way. I was already at the peak of the master tier. It has, I replied curtly. I thought back to all the times I'd given my best resources to my juniors, stunting my own growth. I never progressed this quickly before. The elder, seeing the conversation was over, gave a slight nod and walked away. I left too, but I didn't leave Eastgate City. I had to be here in a month to see the results with my own eyes. On the 7th day of the vault's opening, damn it, how did dark mages get in here? Ara glanced over her shoulder at the 2 black-robed figures chasing her, gritting her teeth in frustration. Normally, a 2-on-1 fight would be in her favor, but she'd been ambushed and poisoned with a particularly nasty toxin that clouded the mind with desire. Under normal circumstances, she could have shaken them, but just as she was about to pull away, the toxin flared. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and her speed faltered. What do I do? Wait, remember the pouch from the man in white? The first few days had been so uneventful, she'd almost forgotten about it. She pulled the pouch from her robes and opened it. Inside was a high-grade antitoxin vial. She marveled at the oracle's disciple's foresight as she quickly swallowed the contents. Just then, a figure burst from the trees. A young man. He launched a volley of spells at the 2 dark mages. Boom! This way. Follow me. The man yelled, already leading the way toward an escape route, but her mind was racing. It's happening. It's all happening, just like he said. The solution lies with the one who holds the key. Remembering the man's warning, she instantly veered off in the opposite direction and fled. Sharing a husband with other women? Absolutely not. Besides, this guy didn't even seem that impressive. Caleb ran for a good distance before realizing the woman wasn't behind him. What the? A strange pang of disappointment hit him. He'd only jumped in because he saw she was beautiful, a damsel in distress, and she just ran. She didn't even thank him. He knew it was normal not to trust strangers, but for some reason, his chest felt tight, as if he had just lost something incredibly important. Meanwhile, as the antitoxin kicked in, she quickly outpaced everyone. When she found a safe place to rest and recover, she replayed the encounter in her mind. Without that powerful antitoxin, she would have been lost to that man, and if he didn't have a cure either, the toxin would have overwhelmed her senses. The consequences were unthinkable. The month-long expedition into the vault was finally over. I positioned myself near the exit portal early, watching as practitioners emerged one by one. Soon, I spotted Lara. From her calm demeanor and the way she carried herself, it was clear she hadn't been compromised. That was excellent news. I smiled and was about to slip away when I saw Lara looking round, her eyes scanning the crowd, her gaze locked onto mine. Her eyes lit up and she started walking briskly toward me. Oh, I never imagined she'd be able to pick me out of a crowd this large this quickly. It was too late to just leave now. Thank you for the antitoxin, senior, Lara said, offering a deep, formal bow. I kept my expression neutral and managed a faint smile. The choice was all yours. This was a matter of great importance to me, she said earnestly. Please, you must come back to the Vern Sanctuary with me. My master will want to thank you properly. That's really not necessary. I shook my head, but then an idea struck me. If a heroine could break free from the plot's trajectory, could she also be the one to claim the artifacts that were originally meant for Caleb? It was a long shot, but the opportunity was right in front of me. I pulled out a small parchment scroll and handed it to her. If you have the chance, you might want to visit these places. You could find something unexpected. With that I turned to leave, eager to avoid any more conversation. Senior, being only a novice tier, was powerless to stop me. She unrolled the parchment. It was a map with several locations marked on it. Where did that man go? One of her friends asked worriedly. Her fellow apprentices caught up to her, disappointed they hadn't had a chance to meet him. After all, anyone who could predict the future was incredibly powerful. A little guidance from someone like that could help them avoid a world of trouble. What's going on here? An elderly woman asked as she approached. She was an elder from the Verdant Sanctuary, their official escort. She had grown concerned when her charges didn't report back immediately. Elder Summers, it's like this. One of the apprentices eagerly recounted the story of what had happened. Dark mages have become so bold, we certainly owe this man our thanks. The elder was relieved that they were safe, but a flicker of doubt crossed her face. I met the Oracle of Ages not long ago. He has always been adamant about never taking disciples. Where did this third disciple of his suddenly come from? Everyone froze. If Brother Astro was a fake, how were his predictions so accurate? And why would he go out of his way to help? I was equally stunned. If he wasn't a disciple of the Oracle, then who else could possibly possess the power to read the threads of fate? After leaving Eastgate City, I began the journey back to Eastgard Academy. Since I was able to slightly alter a heroine's destiny, perhaps I could continue down this path. Of the 2 remaining heroines, one was the demon queen of the Obsidian Warren, completely untouchable. That left only my cold and distant master, Seraphina Frost. Even though the thought filled me with dread, I had to complete the system's mission and get back to the real world. I just had to swallow my pride and do it. After a bit of meandering, I finally made my way back to Whitstone Spire within the academy grounds. No sooner had I set foot on a mountain path than I ran into my 3 junior apprentices. As usual, they were hovering around Caleb, showing him some arcane technique. Senior apprentice. They still went through the motions of a respectful greeting. Caleb, seeing their cue, followed suit. Senior apprentice Hayes. Good to see you, one of the girls explained. Caleb is the Archon's new personal apprentice, right? I said, not wanting to waste another word on them, and started to walk past. But another one of them piped up, aren't you going to give our new junior a welcoming gift? They were remembering how I had given each of them gifts when they first arrived. Not only that, but even when I was lecturing them about training, I would often give them resources to help them along. I almost laughed. And who made that a rule? That senior apprentices have to give out gifts. But they wanted to argue, but Caleb cut them off smoothly. It's all right, everyone. I'm not short on training resources right now. Besides, Senior Apprentice Hayes just got back. He must have important things to attend to. I shot him a quick glance and walked away. Once I was out of earshot, the complaints started. I bet he's just jealous that we're so nice to you. Exactly. Don't worry, Caleb. If you ever need anything, just ask us. Caleb put on a hurt expression, but inside, his mind was already working. So, what if this senior apprentice didn't give him a gift? But to slight him like that, he wouldn't forget it. He had the remnant soul of an ancient powerful entity fused with his own. Even as a remnant, it could go toe-to-toe with an archmage. A measly master-tier apprentice was no threat to him. I meanwhile had arrived at the Grand Hall and was now before Seraphina. Asher Hayes returned from my expedition. Reporting to the Archon, I see, have you met your new junior, Caleb Vance? She asked. The fact that his name was the first thing out of her mouth made me pause. I have, I said. Seraphina nodded. He's new here. Don't be too hard on him. Understood. As I left the hall, I shook my head in silent resignation. My original plan had been to tell Seraphina about the future, to prove to her that I had some kind of foresight. If she understood the gravity of what was coming, maybe she could interfere with Caleb's rise. But her immediate concern was for him. It was like a tidal wave of bad memories crashing over me. In that moment, any lingering thought I had of saving them, of saving Whitstone Spire, completely vanished. For the months that followed, I sealed myself away, focusing only on my own training, ignoring the world outside completely. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. After breaking through to the Archon tier, I finally stepped outside for some fresh air. The chasm between Master tier and Archon tier was immense. To cross it in only 6 months was practically unheard of. I wandered down to a cliffside overlook, gazing out at the sprawling grounds of Ethelgard Academy. After a few minutes, I noticed a lot of activity down at the main gate. Just then, an outer court disciple happened to be passing by. What's all the commotion? I asked. Senior apprentice. The disciple greeted me with a respectful bow. I think it's a delegation from the Verdant Sanctuary here for an official visit. The Verdant Sanctuary. My mind buzzed, a chaotic jumble of thoughts. That's all. You can go, I said, waving him off before sinking back into a daze. According to the novel's plot, the Verdant Sanctuary wasn't supposed to visit for years. Did this mean the plot was determined to revolve around the hero no matter what? Even if Caleb's first meeting was averted, was the story just going to force them together anyway? A heavy, suffocating feeling gripped my chest. What was I supposed to do? How could I ever complete this mission? I was so tired, so incredibly tired. Maybe this was a mistake from the start. I never should have been tempted by the system's reward. I should have just stayed in my own world and worked my dead-end job. System, I called out in my mind, ready to give up, ready to go back to reality. Brother Astra. A familiar voice startled me. I whipped my head around. There was Lara Vane, hands behind her back, leaning forward with a playful smile on her face, looking right at me. I stared, completely bewildered. She giggled. You look so troubled, Senior. What's on your mind? I didn't think someone as powerful as you ever had worries. What are you doing here? I glanced around, half expecting to see Caleb lurking nearby. Well, that's your fault, isn't it? She said, straightening up. Her tone mocked seriousness. My fault? I was completely lost. Yep, she huffed. A certain someone pretended to be a disciple of the Oracle of Ages, but it turns out the Oracle doesn't have any disciples. So to find you, I had to resort to the dumbest method possible, visiting every single arcane academy one by one. It clicked. So that's why they were here. A question popped into my head. What if I had been in seclusion or off on another expedition? Air's expression turned smug. After I got back, I drew a portrait of you from memory. I showed it to people at every academy I visited. Wow, I was speechless. Why would you go to all that trouble? I still didn't understand her motivation. I had to. Her face grew serious. That map you gave me, it led me to the Heartwood. It saved my mother's life. And there it was. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. In the original story, after the whole incident with Caleb, she had remained cold toward him. The major turning point, the thing that finally made her fall for him, was when he found the Heartwood and used it to cure her mother. This time, she had found herself, and she was giving all the credit to me. Her devotion to her mother was so strong that she had undertaken this ridiculously inefficient brute force search just to find me. Let's start over. I'm Yvain. Asher Hayes. Asher, no matter what, you have to come back to the Verdant Sanctuary with me this time. I told you it's not that big of a deal. No, if you don't agree, I'll just stay here at Ethelgard and never leave. You wouldn't. Fine, I'll go. All right, that's more like it. And you know, you didn't just save my mother, you saved me, too. On a winding path down the side of Whitstone Spire, the two of us walked side by side toward the Academy's main campus. And as if on cue, we ran into Caleb. I didn't break my stride, but I watched a year's expression out of the corner of my eye. She didn't even glance in his direction. She was completely engrossed in her own story. Our sanctuary is so beautiful, you have no idea. We have every kind of flower imaginable. I can't even describe it. You'll just have to see it for yourself. We walked right past Caleb without a second thought. He just stood there, stunned, forgetting even the basic courtesy of a greeting. Only one thought was running through his mind. Isn't that the girl I saved in the vault? Why does she look so friendly with Asher Hayes? His suffocating feeling tightened in his chest, and he had to take deep breaths to calm himself. He didn't understand this emotion. He'd helped plenty of girls before. Why, with this one, did he feel so strongly that he should have been the one walking beside her? The next second, the world spun around him. He felt as if something vital was being ripped out of him. When he came to, the old voice echoed in his mind. Kid, what's wrong with you? If I hadn't stepped in just now, your own power would have consumed you. I'm fine, Caleb mumbled, shaking his head. Whatever had been torn away from him, its absence now felt like a relief. A weight lifted. All that remained was a faint, lingering sense of loss. Maybe it was because she had completely ignored Caleb, but in that moment, a wave of pure satisfaction washed over him. It felt like chugging an ice-cold beer after a day of being parched. Absolutely perfect. Just a minute ago, he had been terrified they were about to have some kind of bizarre fated second meeting. After leaving Whitstone Spire, they arrived at the Grand Conclave, the main peak of He had only intended to see her off, but she went straight to their Grand Archon and formally requested him as a guest. The Verdant Sanctuary was a top-tier institution. Their Archon couldn't exactly refuse. In fact, he was thrilled at the prospect of strengthening ties between their two communities. Ethelgard was strictly mid, otherwise, it wouldn't have been nearly wiped out by the enemies Caleb attracted in the original timeline, and so he found himself boarding the Verdant Sanctuary's airship on his way to their domain. Upon arrival, he was welcomed with open arms by everyone from the matriarch and her elders down to the newest acolyte. At first, he didn't understand their overwhelming enthusiasm. Later, it was quietly explained that not only had she found the Heartwood, but the map had also led her to several other priceless artifacts and reagents, a massive boon for the sanctuary. She had, of course, told them the story of the map, which explained the hero's welcome. Gracious, they arranged all sorts of feasts and tours. The more she looked at him, the more she liked what she saw. A young man who had already reached Archon tier, handsome, polite, and carrying himself with a quiet confidence. Later that night, she sat in her daughter's room, holding her hand. Dear, that Asher Hayes seems like a wonderful young man. You need to keep a close eye on him. Era flushed crimson. Mom, what are you talking about? We're just friends. Her mother snorted. Let me tell you something. I saw the way more than a few of your senior sisters were looking at him today. If you really don't care, then I won't say another word. She gave her daughter a look that screamed, "You're hopeless," before leaving the room. It's not like that, Era muttered to herself, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. The way more than a few of your senior sisters were looking at him. Back in my guest quarters, I lay on the bed completely still. The people of the Verdant Sanctuary were a lot. Keeping up with their hospitality was exhausting. 9. The next few days were a blur of touring the sanctuary's magnificent gardens and sampling incredible food. But what's on your mind? You seem distracted, I asked. Ara had been acting strangely for the past couple of days, and this was the first chance I'd had to ask her about it. Nothing, she said, shaking her head so fast it looked like it might fly off. She immediately looked down at the ground, avoiding my eyes. I didn't press the issue. Whatever was going on, she didn't seem upset, just flustered. Besides, I had something else I wanted to talk about. I've been thinking a lot. If a heroine could successfully poach the hero's destiny, why not lean into it? I actually know where to find some other powerful relics. Would you be interested in coming with me to find them? I froze, her mind racing. Asher knows where to find treasure, but he doesn't want to keep it for himself. He wants me to come with him. Could he be interested in me? She could feel her cheeks getting hot. Seeing her just standing there, I misinterpreted her silence, and my heart sank. Of course, it wouldn't be that easy. If you're busy, it's fine. Don't worry about it, I said, trying to sound casual. But the feeling of a missed opportunity was crushing. That flicker of disappointment in my eyes was all it took. Panicked, she said, I'm free. I'd love to go with you, she blurted out. Really? The sudden reversal made me stare straight into her eyes. Yes, really, she replied, her gaze just as earnest. A beat of silence passed between us before we both awkwardly looked away. In that moment, a wild thought crossed my mind. What if her hesitation wasn't because she was reluctant, but because she was flustered? Could she actually like me? Meanwhile, my mind was a chaotic mess. Did she sound too desperate by agreeing so quickly? Was she being too forward? What are you two doing? The arrival of my mother shattered the fragile, charged atmosphere. Just admiring the view, I said quickly. Ira nodded vigorously. Right. The flowers in this part of the garden are especially vibrant. We just stopped to take a closer look. Is that so? Her mother said, feigning understanding. Inwardly, she was cackling with glee. Ha! These two have no idea I saw and heard that entire exchange. 2 days later, I set out with just as I'd hoped. But now, in addition to my mission of derailing Caleb's destiny, a new, more personal objective had taken root in my heart. 3 years later, the Crimson Peaks got it perched on a cliff ledge. I plucked a glowing fruit from a crevice and then leaped, arms outstretched. Asher caught her holding her for a moment before setting her gently on the ground. After 3 years of adventuring together, their bond had deepened into something more. They had shared kisses and whispered secrets. All that was left was the final step. Clara carefully placed the spirit fruit into a specialized containment box before linking her arm through Asher's. Onward to the next location, she declared happily. Asher smiled affectionately, brushing a leaf out of her hair with his free hand. Just then, the communication crystal in his storage ring pulsed. He checked the message with his mind and froze on the spot. Caleb Vance was dead. According to the message, Caleb had been struck by a rare demonic toxin. The only cure was the legendary He and his companions had searched the entire Jade Vein mountain range where the apple was said to grow, but found nothing. In the end, the poison claimed him. It was so absurd. The hero of the story, dead, just like that. And what's more, the 3 junior apprentices who had gone with him to search for the cure had also run into trouble. They never made it back. What is it? Ara asked, gently prodding his cheek with her finger. Nothing, Asher said with a smile, wrapping his arm around her waist as they started walking again. His other hand rested on his storage ring. In a forgotten corner, inside lay a small wooden box, and in that box, undisturbed for over 2 years, sat the trickle apple. Host has successfully completed the mission. Do you wish to claim your reward and return to reality? What reality for me? This is reality now. In a hidden cavern, an old man opened his eyes. A satisfied smile was on his face. He murmured to himself, I once thought merging with a greater world would be a blessing. I never imagined it would cost this world nearly 90% of its people. But he finally did it. He succeeded. He changed the future. I suppose, the old man mused, stroking his long beard. It's time I went and found myself to new apprentices. After all, how can I be a third disciple? Brother Astra, if there isn't a first and a second. The end.